Good afternoon, everybody from Brussels. Globalization is a daily routine for everyone, but for the online world, which has so quickly become so pervasive in our lives, we are only just beginning to understand the safeguards that are needed. Both globalization and its corollary on online connectivity depends on instantaneous international flows of personal data. In Europe, we are modernizing our legal frameworks and preparing a new generation of rules which are intended to be fit for the digital age. So now is the opportunity for all democratic countries across the world to build partnership on responsible data processing based on common values. This is why I particularly welcome the organization of this seminar, which brings together regulatory and enforcement experiences from the European Union and Korea, and will help us learn more about our respective legal frameworks and practices. The new European Union Data Protection Framework. What about it? My role is to ensure that EU institutions and policymakers protect the fundamental rights, and in particular those to privacy and data protection. I also act as advisor to the European Union legislators in the area of data protection and privacy. A Copernican revolution is occurring in the European Union legal framework for data protection. The general data protection regulation has probably been one of the most negotiated European Union laws ever, with 3 years of difficult negotiation rounds and publication on 4th of May this year. The new framework will become fully applicable in May 2018. Let me highlight just a few trends in the European Union General Data Protection Regulation which are relevant for today's discussion. The regulation will clearly apply where organizations or companies are not established in the EU but offer goods and services to individuals in the EU or monitor their behavior. And this is, I believe, very similar to the approach by Korean regulatory authorities who have applied Korean legislation to foreign organizations targeting Korean users. Current EU rules already provide for international transfers of personal data that might be necessary in a trade context on condition that the country of destination is deemed to ensure an adequate level of protection. The new rules continue to maintain this rule that data can be transferred to a third country if the European Commission has taken a decision according to which the country provides for an adequate level of protection. I'm sure you are familiar with the Commission adequacy decision on the European Union US Privacy Shield announced on 12th of July this year by European Union Justice Commissioner Vera Jourova and US Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker. Adequacy decisions as general solutions for transfers from the EU are welcome, but experience shows us that they have to be comprehensive and solid enough to last and provide also legal certainty to individuals and organizations in the long term. This is the message I gave in my opinion on the draft decision, in which I also propose this year solutions to improve the framework. In the absence of a Commission decision on adequacy of the third country, a controller or processor may transfer personal data to a third country only if adequate safeguards are in place and on condition that enforceable data subject rights and effective legal remedies are available for the individuals. The data protection authorities in the EU have been given greater powers and notably serious sanctioning powers with the possibility to impose fines of up to 4% of global annual revenue to companies that do not comply with the legal framework. This provision should make an impact in executive boardrooms, but whether it will make an impact, it depends on how data protection authorities implement it and how effective cooperation between authorities across the world will be. At the recent spring conference of the data protection authorities in the EU in Budapest, Hungary, this year, a resolution was adopted on new frameworks of cooperation. It underlines the importance of cross-border cooperation between authorities and calls upon the data protection authorities in the EU for closer, more proactive and effective cooperation. It also reminds the DPAs on the necessity of practical and innovative approach, including greater dialogue and information sharing with other regulatory bodies responsible for safeguarding the rights and interests of individuals in the digital society and economy. The recent signature by the Korean Information Security Agency of a Memorandum of Understanding with the US FTC and other foreign agencies to combat unsolicited messages and calls is a good example of this cross-border, cross-sector cooperation. We also see the cooperation between the different authorities in South Korea as an example of joint efforts of enforcement by various authorities. Very soon in Brussels we will publish a new EDPS opinion on the need of an effective enforcement of fundamental rights in the age of big data at the European Union level. As already mentioned in a preliminary paper on this topic in 2014, we will argue at EDPS that coordination between regulators and cooperation between enforcers are of paramount importance in the age of big data and call for a joint enforcement. It implies the authorities' willingness to share information on relevant and cross-sectoral cases. It requires them to talk to each other, to take the individual rights into account, to look at the broader picture, to share expertise and best practices. But in a world where data flows have no apparent borders, cooperation at the bilateral or even at regional level is not enough. In this perspective, I would like to highlight the work of the International Conference on Privacy and Data Protection Commissioners, in which both the EDPS and Korea, represented by the Information Security Agency and the Personal Information Protection Commission, are active members. In this framework, the acceptance of a global cross-border enforcement cooperation arrangement shows the real potential for worldwide cooperation. And like the DPS, Korea is also engaged in the global privacy enforcement network. Despite multiple regulatory, procedural and even constitutional differences regarding privacy and data protection around the globe, supervisory authorities share common objectives, common values and common enforcement experiences. We need to further build on them to address the challenges of today's hyper-connected reality. In this respect, we are very curious to learn from your experience, both with foreign agencies and amongst yourselves. Finally, I would like to mention the upcoming possible change in EU membership. You have all heard about the referendum in the UK and the triggering of Article 50 of the European Union Treaty. It is a challenge for the EU, the first of its kind, but I'm sure we will overcome it and use this experience as an opportunity to improve and reinforce the Union. And I will borrow the words of Nietzsche here: what does not kill you makes you stronger. Thank you for your attention.